Hi, good evening, everyone. Let us now talk about the second myth. The second myth is that India's growth has been driven by export, has not been driven by export, and certainly not by manufacturing export. तो ये कहता है कि अगर ये myth है, this is a myth, this is wrong, but it says that लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि इंडिया में जो भी जीडीपी में इंक्रीज हुआ है, इंडिया की जो भी ग्रोथ हुई है, वो डेफिनेटली एक्सपोर्ट से तो नहीं हुई और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्सपोर्ट से तो पक्का ही नहीं हुई. दिस इज व्हाट इट सेज. नाउ, in order to explain that this is a myth, we come across the data. So the first data that we talk about, this is saying that if I talk about early 1990s, India saw huge increase in the exports. India में जो exports हैं वो huge amount से बढ़े थे in the early 1990s. ठीक है. And this is not only in the service sector. ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने सिर्फ services export की. This is also in the manufacturing sector. And actually this increase in export, this is what led to high GDP growth in India. क्योंकि ये exports बढ़े, इसीलिए हमारी GDP growth high थी इंडिया में, right? It says that between 1995 to 2018, India had the third highest exports, which was 13.4%. So if you go to your readings, you will see something like this. You will see two diagrams. Jisme it is talking about the export growth of goods and services from 1995 to 2018. ठीक है, यहां पर आप कंट्री की रैंक देखोगे. You will see highest is in Vietnam, जिनके highest exports. Second highest you will see in China. Please exam में draw this. This is important. And third highest you will see in India at 13.4%. Right? This is your figure 3A. Right? This is service, goods and service. Then if I talk about figure 3B, it only talks about manufacturing. Manufacturing, maybe you will see the same. Highest is Vietnam. Second highest is China. And third highest is India. And India ka hai 12.1%. So which means even if I compare globally, it will be incorrect to say that India is not performing well. India's overall export performance has been very, very good, right? Then it says that, look, these are some points I've written in highlights. Aise yaad karna will be easier. India is service sector export powerhouse. मतलब जितना services हैं, majorly India export करता है, like the call centers, right? Like software industry. We export our services to the rest of the world. But it is also an exporter of the manufacturing goods. I just showed you in the graph that we are exporting 12.1%. It is third highest in the country, in the world, right? So it is a successful exporter of manufacturing products also. Then it has a substantial contribution to GDP growth. ये जो exports हैं, they have a substantial contribution to GDP growth. इस point पे you can refer to table 2 of your reading. So when you go to table 2, you will see a table there in which you will see period. जिसमें you will have consumption, investment, export, etc., etc. Here, if you see export, this export, just have a look at this export factor. This export is increasing over time. This is very high over time, right? So if you see share of total, you will see 25%, 32%, 34%. So with time, exports are contributing higher and higher to the GDP of the country, right? Recently, पूरा global trade collapse हुआ था. So if the entire world collapsed, तो growth थोड़ी कम होगी. Still, India has gained substantive global market share. Even though there was a global trade collapse, India still continue to gain global market share. अब क्या हुआ कि इस पॉइंट पे इंडिया में कुछ कुछ एंटी एक्सपोर्ट पॉलिसीज आई. जैसे फर्स्ट, earlier the pharmaceutical industry was doing very well. It was exporting a lot to US. But then there was some information that there was some fraudulent activities, and it had some reputational disadvantage for the Indian firms, because of which the pharmaceutical exports decreased. कुछ कुछ reputational disadvantage की वजह से, कुछ इंडियन फार्मास्यूटिकल मैन्युफैक्चरर्स के fraudulent activities की वजह से जो pharmaceutical exports थे, it started falling. Second, minerals were doing very nicely before 2014. But then Supreme Court started putting some tightening on the regulation. So the mineral export also started to decline. Third, social policy on livestock changed. तो पहले agricultural exports बहुत high थे, but later because they changed the policy on livestock, agricultural exports also started to decrease. So ये सब के होते हुए जो सारी एंटी एक्सपोर्ट एक्टिविटीज थी, still India was contributing very high. India's export was contributing very high to GDP. So export to GDP ratio was still 20%, even after having all these substantial things that happened in India, right? So if you go ahead to figure 4 then of your reading, it says export growth decomposed, in which you will say that, see that India has 19.6%, right, over the excess over the rest of the world. So India is performing very well as compared to the rest of the world, right? It has a very high performance rate. ये 2-3 diagrams please banana exam में, it will always give you marks. And then this diagram that I've made, this is the ratio of export of goods and service to GDP. So yes, it declined some part, but still it is continuously increasing. So if I see a trend, हमेशा ना ग्राफ में ट्रेंड देखो. ट्रेंड होता है कि मैं क्या अपवर्ड स्लोपिंग लाइन बना पा रही हूँ या डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग, right? So if I look at the trend, don't see what is happening like this. Just look at the trend. Trend is upward sloping, right? So which means that over time, the exports are contributing more and more to GDP of the country, right? They're contributing more and more. So in 2018, it was somewhere around 20%, which is a good number. So in other words, exports are doing beautifully well. Export is contributing too much to GDP. And if you stop these exports, हमने पिछली classes में देखा ना that India is no more in favor of free trade. It is doing a lot of tariff, right? And it just wants to do import substitution. So if you abandon the export, it is like killing the goose that laid golden eggs, right? Export is the key to GDP increasing. You cannot go ahead and stop doing these exports. Okay, thank you.